You're visiting the Mom Next Door and our stories of faith. I'm glad you dropped by for a visit. Please stay a while and hear what the Lord has done in the lives of moms just like you and me. Hi, friends. I'm so glad that you've met us here today. And I want to invite you to also meet us over on the Facebook group that we have. So the group you're going to look for is called Tending Fields Moms Group. And we just chat about mom life over there, the practical and the, I don't know, what would I say? The practical and the serious and the lighthearted, and we pray for each other over there. So if you are looking for a place to belong, please join us over in that group. I've been learning a lot about technology in the past 2 years. And one thing I've learned concerning podcasts is that if you subscribe, like, and leave a review, the show moves up in rankings and is even suggested for other listeners. So although it feels really uncomfortable for me to ask, I do want to ask you if you would do those things. It feels like self-promotion, and that feels icky to me. But as I listen more to the testimonies that the women come on and tell, I realize that it's really promoting God and the way that He walks with us in our stories. It's God's glory through our stories, and that I can get behind promoting. So please tell a friend, share the podcast, and like I said, like and review and all those things. Now, I want to introduce you to a new friend. I met Peggy when we were both at a family outdoor school in Eastern Oregon. I knew that there was something about her that presented as strength, peace, and depth. But it wasn't until she messaged me and told me that she was willing to share her story about the passing away of her young daughter that it all made sense. So I suppose that's a bit of a trigger warning that we're going to be talking about some really tough stuff today. Peggy, welcome. I wish you were here in person, and it's funny. Normally I'm on a Zoom meeting face to face, and today we couldn't even work that out. So now we are on a Zoom meeting via telephone, which I've never done before. But again, always learning technology, always learning the new thing. I wish I could give you a hug and share a cup of tea with you right now, but across 2,000 miles, that obviously isn't going to work. But I'm honored that you're here and that you're willing to share your story with me and my listeners. So, Peggy, would you just jump in and tell me a little bit about yourself, or you could just jump back and start at the beginning, wherever you want to go. I want to hear what you've got to share with me.
Thanks, Pam. I do remember us meeting over at camp, and it just the interaction was great, and I was sad when you moved, and so I'm glad that we're getting to connect today and talk about what God's done. Let's see a little bit about me. I have 6 kids. The youngest is 4, and then I had remarried 8 years ago, and so she is the only of my current marriage, and my other children are from my previous marriage. And so my next oldest is 15 now, whom you met at camp, Chloe, she hung out with Sarah by the road. That sounds bad.
No, they were out there waving the signs, telling everybody, this is the place to turn in. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then I have a 17-year-old, soon to be 17 this month, soon to be 20 this month. And then Hannah would be 21. And then my oldest is 25. I have done some homeschooling for my oldest, about 4.5 years. I was a public school teacher prior to homeschooling my older kids. I did that for 10 years. And now I will be homeschooling my little one. And I'm up in Vancouver and part of the homeschool community up here, which is where the camp is from. Yeah. And so I'm mom and wife, and that's what keeps me busy these days. I'm actually trying to pick out curriculum for my 4-year-old because she's different than all my other kids. So
that's the way it works.
yeah. That's what kept me up late last night. And I still am clueless because, yeah, anyway, that's a whole nother conversation.
Right. Just when we think we've got it all figured out, then there's this one. And yeah, I know what you're saying.
She's super smart, but I don't want to like overwhelm it. Anyway, like I said, another day, and
Yeah.
you're a resource. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that one another day. And there's days when we just jump into the practical here too, and that's fun. And then some days where we get to just, I don't know, hear testimonies and hear, like I said earlier, what the Lord has done in the lives of people. And yeah, I don't even know how to start, to tell you the truth.
I'm looking at my book here. I think that's a good place to, it kind of, I don't know, it's a good starting place. I wrote a little book of God's love, the testimony of God's love through my daughter Hannah's death. And it's nothing formal, it's nothing fancy. I published it myself. It's just little vignettes. And it's really short, like 40 something pages. But it shares how God's hand was on the day that she died and on the subsequent years after she died, over and over again. And even the cover, and it just, looking at it, it just blows me away, because even the cover is so powerful. And the story behind that is, I met a mom on Facebook shortly after Hannah died, who had also lost her son 2 months after Hannah died. And we met over Facebook and started interacting and able to support each other. And I've never met her. She's over in Pennsylvania. We've talked on the phone a few times now, and it's really hit and miss. But when I wrote this book, I knew that she did paintings, and so I asked her if she would paint the cover. So she did a watercolor painting. I sent her a pencil scratch scribble of some ideas of what I would want in this painting and kind of where maybe they might be. And she totally turned it into this amazing watercolor painting of a salmon jumping out of water with a rainbow coming off of the middle, off of technically it's my hand. And I'm dancing because I did worship dance. So it's a scarf there behind me, not angel wings. And a couple of butterflies, which are significant to the story as well. So it's just really cool that, even that, like, God pulled that together, and with the technology, that I could go on for an hour about how that came to be with many, many struggles with technology. But so God's just all over everything.
You and I met another time on the phone where we could just sit and chat, because I didn't know your story at all. And I'm trying to remember where we started it when we talked about that. Did we start at the day of the field trip, or did we start prior to that, Hannah's growing up?
Probably with the day of the field trip. Hannah was on a school field trip to Bonneville Dam here over here in Oregon. I keep forgetting I'm in Washington. And I was actually teaching that day in my public school classroom, and she was on her field trip. I just am blown away by what God did, like I said, even that day. And I didn't, of course, know everything right away, but he put parent volunteers on that field trip that paid attention to all the details. And as a public school teacher, I can tell you that doesn't happen. So I knew that was God when I received 2 letters from 2 different moms that had been on the field trip. And it outlined every moment of Hannah's day, starting with the classroom before they left, and how she gave the thumbs up sign after every spelling word, because she was really, really good at spelling. And she would write down the word for the test and give the thumbs up sign. I don't know who she was giving it to, but she would give the thumbs up sign, and they noticed that. And usually parents are like kind of zoning out, like before they're on the bus, especially if the teachers got them engaged in some activity in the classroom. And then on the bus, I know that she was singing songs, and the teacher shared that she had noticed a cloud formation in the sky on the way to the Bonneville Dam, because it's out the gorge and the school's in Gresham. And And then when they got there, they went and they to the fish ladder and they saw a salmon jump, which is not common at that time of the year, which is another significant thing. And that's why there's a salmon on the front of the book jumping. And the book is called The Day the Salmon Jumped. And so they saw a salmon jump, and then they went up to the pillbox, which is up above. And then they actually looked out over the spillway that was between Oregon and Washington. And one of the moms took a picture. And it turns out that it was literally about 7 minutes before she collapsed. So the fact that she took this picture, just God moved on so many little details. And then I know that she tied her shoe and while she was standing in line to go in. So she never actually went into the visitor center, but she tied her shoe. And then as she went to stand up, she collapsed. And she had a heart condition that we knew about, but we had a false security with it because she inherited it. It was genetically inherited from her father. Each of my children had a 50-50 chance of getting his gene or my gene, and she got his gene. And so we knew about it, but for him, when he had his first episode as a teenager, CPR saved him. And so we just kind of thought that would be the case. So we just told everybody CPR, just be ready with CPR. But that was Hannah's first episode and only episode. And CPR didn't save her. They had the AED. Also, they were, because it's Bonneville Dam, so it's Army Corps. And so they did everything. And it wasn't enough. So that was not what we expected. So the condition seems to be worse in the children in the next generation of the gene as it's passed on. So I do have 2 other boys with the condition. And after we lost Hannah, they immediately got, one and then the other, about a year later, got defibrillators, an ICD implanted. So they have those and they still have them today. And those are a saving grace. So that was the day the salmon jumped.
So yeah, what do you do when there is this genetic condition, but the teachers knew about it and your teachers were trained in CPR, so that it was like you kind of thought that would be enough. Right.
And her teacher knew about it. I don't know if he himself was trained in CPR, but there's always somebody around, at Bonneville, they knew CPR. And so we always thought that was enough.
Right.
And yeah.
And you didn't tell me before about having the AED there and everything. That is something that isn't especially, it's becoming more common, but did you tell me, was this about 10 years ago?
2009. So we'll be at 13 years.
Yeah. So it definitely wasn't very common back then to have an AED either. So, I think when you I don't know that you'd ever get over the shock of it, but in a way, you had to probably logically think through all of the things were there. We prepared as much as we could. We've done all the things as far as humanity is concerned. It's out of our hands as humans. And this was truly something that God was part of. And it sounds like you really kind of spent some time processing that and coming to grips with that.
Oh, it was, yeah. Speaking about it now, probably make it sound like, oh, no big deal. No, it was definitely really difficult and a very long process. So many pieces to it. And then, as I said, the boys, they got their ICDs. My first boy got his within 6 months of Hannah's passing, and that was just traumatic to do that right then and be in the hospital, and we hadn't done that before, and there's a risk of surgery and just all of those things. So it was very emotionally charged, that process. But God just provided people. I had 6 people. Interestingly, they didn't know where to take her from Bonneville Dam. And they actually sat there. Well, first it took the ambulance a while to get there, but when they did get there, and the good news is Army Corps, the Bonneville Dam staff, knew how to do everything. So the only thing that changed once the ambulance arrived was an IV. but they didn't know where to take her. If they were going to take her to Portland or Hood River, which was difficult because we were stuck in Gresham waiting to find out which direction they were going to take her, because we didn't want to head towards Hood River if they were going to take her to Portland. And so we were stuck sitting there waiting for them to make a decision. And I am thankful I wasn't there. I can't imagine sitting there for 45 minutes in that scenario. But I had people from my church. I had 6 people. So they took her to Hood River, and 6 people from my church make it out to Hood River within, the first 2 showed up almost immediately right after we arrived. And so I don't even know how they did that. And so I had support from the beginning, and God just orchestrated that. And it's grief and loss are not logical in any way. I was a part of the Dougie Center, which is an amazing resource for any person that has access to it. I know it's not just in the Northwest now, but amazing resource for grief support. But I didn't want to leave her alone at the hospital. She was already passed, and this is what I was saying about the logic. There's just no logic with grief and loss. I couldn't leave her. So, but I didn't want to see her being taken away either in the funeral home's vehicle. And so we left with the understanding that people from my church were going to stay with her so that she wasn't alone. And so some of my friends from church stayed with her when we left the hospital. So it's just, it's very, all those little details, very interesting, but God orchestrated just that I'd have the people there and knew what I would need. And then his hand has just continued to be on us in the next couple of months. And he provided just such comfort through the Christian radio. I actually was listening to Caleb at that season, and I would have to listen to Caleb as I went to sleep because I needed to distract my mind. Otherwise, I wasn't able to fall asleep in those first weeks or months. And I would wake up in the middle of the night and turn it off. Otherwise, I was dreaming about the music I heard. But it was, and then I would be driving down the street, and and I've heard so many testimonies on all the Christian radio stations about this, but just the right song would come on time and time and time and time again during that season. And Stephen Chris Chapman put out a song called "Heaven Is the Face of My Little Girl." That song, because he also lost his little girl, tragic accident. And so that was powerful, and I would hear that, and Mercy Me songs, and all these songs. And I actually sent my testimony into Caleb, and they printed it chose it as their selected testimony one day. It was on their website. And part of the reason I mentioned that though is because I was able to print it out, a screenshot of that testimony that was on Caleb, and I took it to the dam, which I spent a lot of time at Bonneville Dam the first year, and I actually continue to go on the anniversary every year because it's actually a positive place for us, and we get to go see. There's a fish hatchery there, and we go see this fish, and so it's a positive place for us to go. But this is non-Christian place. There's obviously Christians there, but so I was able to take the testimony from Caleb, and they actually hung it in the staff room. And so here's this Christian radio station's testimony of something that just happened, and it really affected a lot of their staff. There was 4 staff heavily involved with the scenario, and of course more of them knew about it. And we've continued to I was in contact with several of them for years. And one of the ladies ended up moving into my neighborhood in Gresham. Just so many connections. And I was so close with the staff that when there was a government shutdown, 2013, there was a government shutdown because Bonneville Dam was shut because of the budget spending, whatever that was. But because I had the connection that I did, I got special permission and a special pass to go into the dam on her anniversary and go do my normal thing that I did every year. So just all the things that God has worked out. And I was able to, I wouldn't have known who to ask, but because the lady was in my neighborhood that had worked on Hannah, I just went right up to her door and was like, the dam's closed, but I need to go there. And she's like, no problem, I'll make a phone call. So it's been one little testimony after another with God's hand.
Do you find that as you have watched him work through the circumstances and seen him show up, seen all these miracle, some would say they're coincidences. We know they're not. We know God has his hands in our lives and directs and moves on people's hearts. As you have learned to walk with him through that, through losing Hannah, do you think you see him show up in other areas of your life a little more freely than you did before?
Yes and no. It's the human condition. Oh my. I find myself in moments where I feel I'm like, this is overwhelming. And one of the things that I've tried to do is write down at different seasons. I'm not consistent about it, but write down like answered prayers, because even though I have this amazing testimony of God's love, you get into the another big trial or difficulty and you forget. And so having it written down and being able to occasionally pick those up and look at them like, oh yeah, is good and powerful. And then I am probably more aware of some of the little things, like just him orchestrating things than others might be. I can't say that for certain. It's just part of my norm now. I don't know if I do it more than others or not. But.
Well, not so much more than others, but even more than you yourself used to. It's like I've noticed that since we moved here, looking at so many amazing connections that he has made, so many ways that he went before us to make the path smooth for moving. And even if there were points where it wasn't smooth, now in retrospect, it makes sense. I think it gives me a greater confidence to when I see something and I'm like, oh, that was God, like I recognize it, not in comparison to someone else, but just even in my own faith journey, I think as I'm awakened to that knowledge that he is with me, he is working, I see. And maybe that's part of that is age too. As we age and we learn to walk with the Lord, we recognize his presence just as we walk with him longer.
Yes. Yeah. I think I am more aware. But at the same time, I know that there's moments where I'm just like, God, where are you? And so having those journals and stuff has really helped in the subsequent difficult times. I wish I could say that Hannah was the last thing. There was a really amazing thing that happened on my first birthday after Hannah died. So it was just 4 months after, and Hannah's birthday was right after mine, also 4 days apart. And I was at a women's retreat at the beach with some women from church, and the last morning of the weekend retreat was my birthday. And so we were sitting around the breakfast table and they sang happy birthday to me. And during the middle of the song, which isn't a long song, a rainbow just appeared across the sky right in front of the beach house, just bam. And I was like, oh, that's, from God. But of course didn't want to say that. I didn't want to sound arrogant like that. But two of the other women said it. So I was like, oh, okay, it's not just, it wasn't just my thought. And then one of the ladies, she felt like God was saying, because the rainbow is, about not flooding. That's, initially what the rainbow stands for. But in her quiet time later, God said, no, that's not it. It's that I will never, no matter how high the water gets, I will be with her and she will make it through. And that last wording, I'm not sure, but the first part is exactly what she heard and what she told me. And it was the first time I'd ever gotten a message like that. And it was a lady who didn't really walk in that kind of experiences. So it was significant to me in that way as well. I have ran across it. It's actually a verse in the Bible. And now I can't tell you where it's at, but.
Well, and I can't remember either, but I remember a song when I worked at a summer camp and it talked about when I walked through the water. I can think of the jingle of the song. When I walk through the waters, or when you walk through the waters, I will be there, and through the flame. Is it that one?
It's literally a verse that says, no matter how high the water gets, that God, he will be with you, us, me, or whoever he's talking to in that verse. And it won't sweep you away. You won't be swept away. You'll take you to the other side. And so I remember there's so many pieces of this that it was exactly like this. I remember being so excited. It was my first word from God. And then I knew that this woman didn't walk in that kind of hearing those things, type of things. And so it was really exciting about that. So I was excited about all those pieces of this. And then just to have something so personal, and it was clearly from God, because she thought the rainbow meant that I wouldn't be flooded again. So for her to then hear, no, that's not it. So she was clearly hearing, in my opinion, from God, because her flesh wanted to say, the initial response. But at the same time, it was a response saying, she'll have high water. She'll be up to her neck in water again, but I'll be with her. Mm. So it was, I was excited, but at the same time, it was an indicator that, life was not going to necessarily be easy, and that there's the other moments, and there has been. So God is faithful, and he is just continues to show up. And back to the salmon. So Hannah saw a salmon jump, and then I took the kids, her brothers and sisters, to the dam 2 weeks later after she passed, and we saw a salmon jump. Mm. and like I said, even on the day she saw it, on middle of October, it was rare to see the salmon jump at that part of the season, because as there's not very many salmon going through, they don't need to exert the energy to jump up. They can just swim through the bottom.
Okay.
And so by the end of October, when I took the kids, it's doesn't happen. And so we just felt like, a little God moment. And everybody can see those things and however you want to see them, but we've always just felt like it was God, orchestrating those moments. So we got to experience what Hannah had experienced. And he's continued to do that with the salmon. We've seen them multiple years. We don't see them every year, but we have seen them multiple years. And then we've also had this thing with butterflies, where God has, in the first couple of years, sent us just butterflies that have come down and just been with us. One of them literally spent a half an hour with us. It's the craziest thing. We were at the river, the kids and I, and this butterfly came and flew around, I think 3 of the 4 kids, even landed on one of the boys' head and sat there on his forehead, and then landed on my shoe and sat there. And it was for half an hour, just hung out with us there at the river. And I've never seen anything like it before, and never seen anything like that after. And to the point that when we left, I actually put a piece of cantaloupe down by my shoe and got the butterfly onto the cantaloupe so we could leave it there.
It just wanted to hang with you. That's funny.
It did. And we just saw it as I don't know what exactly to call it, but this, almost like Hannah was with us, and not really. I don't think Hannah was in the butterfly, but it was like God saw us.
It's like a gift of joy. It's like the Lord sends you this butterfly to give you just amusement and joy that maybe wouldn't have been there that day. And maybe that's why it's significant and feels like, if Hannah had been with you that day, she would have been giving you amusement and joy. And, you would have just, it would have changed your day. It would have looked different. And so, it's like God's gift to bring us that delight when otherwise we might be a little bit lonely not saying that a butterfly would replace Hannah by any means. No,
and that's what it's right. It's hard. You said it well. It's hard to put in words, but you did just say it very well. But it did. It brought us comfort, and there was more than one butterfly. We've had multiple butterfly experiences in those first few years, and another one we were camping and came hung out with us. And again, it was probably a half an hour. It didn't land on anybody that time, but we've had multiple and they just always brought us yeah, a little joy, a little, it's and kind of like God saying, I see you. And so because I see you, I'm going to send you this butterfly, this little spark of joy
And a reminder that
yeah,
he's there.
reminder.
And yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, he's good. And and I think that he personalizes that for each one of us, isn't it? I
Yes.
know there's
Yes.
things in my life and there'll be some corny thing and somebody will be one of my children will say, "Mom, why do you like that?" Or why do you think? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just something that always brings me joy or something, a reminder. I see something. I mean, it's kind of funny how memories work like that. We can see something or hear something or have something around us that all of a sudden it brings a flood of emotion, one way or another. And I think God has designed each of us to respond differently to different prompts like that because he has a different journey for each and a different way that he's going to reach us and teach us.
The other reason this was significant is because at that point, the kid's dad and I were already separated, and a friend had suggested to like bring some new life into the house and like just like maybe a new art piece or something. And I had gone to Target and I had found a piece of metal artwork that had 5 butterflies. This was before Hannah died. And so 5 butterflies, one for each of the kids. And I was like, oh, I love it. And so I bought it and I put it in the bathroom. And so that's the other significance to the butterflies is that that I'd already chosen that artwork prior to, and each one represented the children, and in the 5 butterflies and 5 kids. So that was the other piece of it too. And I've heard stories through the Dougie Center of other people experiencing things with birds. Like I remember one lady talking about for weeks, a bird came and tapped at her back door with its beak. It's just, and it was right after she had lost her son or her daughter. I don't remember who it was at this point, but I just remember that story. And so God does, he just sees us and he knows. And like you were saying, just, each person and what they need and what they would speak to them. And he reaches us. Just how he knows what we need in the moment. There's another example. I was at the hospital with my first son who had his surgery after Hannah died, and I didn't even know what I needed. And I was at the hospital, and that is the worst place for parents that are there with like somebody, a child with a serious illness or cancer. I just can't even imagine. It's like the vortex. You get lost. You feel so disconnected from the outside world. And I was only there a couple of days as he recovered from his implant surgery. But I was a couple of days in, and I'd gone down to get something to eat from the cafeteria. And just as I started to pass by the elevator that was by the cafeteria, there was a lady and her kids from our church. And one moment earlier or later, and I would not have seen her, she would have gotten on the elevator. And she wasn't there to see me. She was there to see one of her family members. But I ran into her, and so after she visited her family, she came and visited me, and it was just what I needed. I so needed some contact from the outside world, and God knew that, and he provided it. It just how he sees us and knows what we need, and we don't even have to pray it. Like I hadn't prayed, like I need to talk to somebody, but he knew that I needed that.
I just see it every time when I talk to somebody, how much community plays a part in our stories. I wonder if you would give us any tips of how we can respond to somebody who's been through a tragic loss of a child. I know there's probably some bad things that we shouldn't say, some things that, and when I think when we hear sometimes things people say that it's like, oh my goodness, why did you even say that? I think a lot of times we say things because the silence is so hard. And so then we say something, something so silly like even time heals all wounds. Just give it some time. Well, there's silly things we say just to fill the void. Can you give us some words of what is best to say, or is it best to just sit in the silence and hold space with somebody who is going through a situation like this, and I know it's individual, I guess, everybody is going to respond differently, but I know we can always benefit from having some tools.
It is very individual, but there are some that are definitely kind of agreed upon. And you hit upon, I think, the one that I remember the most. As I said, I was a part of the Dougie Center. We were actually, it's based on how long your children want to go. It's for children who have lost either a sibling or a parent. And you're in the group with the right corresponding. So we were in a group for children who had lost siblings. It was consensus that the phrase "time will heal" just makes people's blood boil.
Yeah.
And we had a safe place to talk about it. And we were just like, we want to slap people. And we knew that people weren't really going to slap anybody, but it was a safe place to just share like raw emotion. And that's how it felt in that moment. And when someone would say something like that, you really just wanted to smack them like across the face. And they didn't mean it. Like you said, people are just trying to fill the void. But that one particularly is just really difficult, because in that moment, you can't imagine. And you don't want to imagine. That's the other thing, is we don't want to imagine not having that pain, not thinking of our child so freshly. And that's one of the biggest fears, is that they'll be forgotten. And so we don't want time to heal. We don't want to forget this child or this person that we've lost. So that's the biggest piece of it, is that understanding that they don't want to think of a day when it's not going to be fresh in their mind. They don't want it to be gone and their memory to be forgotten. And that's, for me, that's, why I insist on going to Bonneville Dam every October 15th. I don't want to go about normal on that day. I refuse to do that, because I don't want it to just become another day where it's completely forgotten. And the same for her birthday, which brings me to another piece of the testimony. Her birthday was 4 days after mine, February 18th. And 17 years later, my daughter, who I mentioned was 4, was born on February 18th. So God just gave another element to that day. They share a birthday now, and so we still celebrate both of them. And it's not really in any significant way. It's for Hannah at this point, other than I usually put it either on the cake or on the wall decoration. Somewhere it says "Happy Birthday" to both of them, and so it's not a big portion, but it's there. And before my youngest was born, I would always do something different on that day as well, because I didn't want it to just be forgotten. And so those 2 days of the year, I always do something. And it just, I think further answer your question, I think one of the biggest things is to maybe think of what that person might need, and to just do it for them and not wait for them to answer, because a lot of times they don't know what they need, or they can't put it into words. I remember just the days before the memorial service, we needed clothes for the other kids to wear to the service that looked decent. And I think I probably had talked about it, but I hadn't asked anybody. And one of my teacher friends showed up at the door and was like, here's 2 pairs of slacks and 2 pairs of dress shoes for the boys. And that was exactly like what I needed, and I hadn't asked. And so just kind of thinking about what they might need, what would be helpful, and doing those things without being asked. And when you say, what do you need? They really don't know a lot of times, or we don't know what I need. And so just being there. And the other huge thing for me, and this is in those first days, was even though I saw God's hand, even though I was walking in that clearly, like in all the examples I've given, I couldn't pray for the first month. I was upset with God probably a little bit, and I couldn't pray. And I had complete peace with it, though, because I knew that there were at least 2, if not 3 people, I can't remember at this point how many it was, but 2 or 3 people who were praying for me, because they told me, I'm praying for you. And that was so just important, because I couldn't pray, but I felt okay because they were praying for me. So that's just a big thing, to let someone know you're praying for them. each person is different, but I know a lot of people, I've seen other people do this too, the anniversaries, especially even in the first year, the monthly anniversary is huge. Every month, like 2 months today, 3 months today, 4 months today. And then the 1 year anniversary, I actually scheduled a whole church service. It was my way of doing grief.
Right. Right.
But to know that those months, that first year, that every month on the date, so reaching out to people who've lost someone on the day for that first year, and then definitely on the 1 year. Most people are thinking about it. I can say that that's probably more of a majority, not a unique thing, but how they deal with it is different. But I think most people are thinking on those days, and even praying for you or a visit or whatever would be good for those dates.
I think sometimes we have a little crisis of decision of, well, I wouldn't want to bother them, or I wouldn't want to remind them of something that was so painful. But I think that you're always going to be reminded of it, and you're always going to live through that memory. And so coming alongside someone and sending them a note and just saying, I remember your child, and I remember the hard thing, but I'm going to pray for you. And I just want you to know that I'm thinking about you today. I think that's always welcome.
It is. And like what you said, that is so true. I think people totally feel like, oh, I don't want to bring that up. I don't want to make them sad. Pretty much a guarantee they're already thinking about it. So,
yeah.
No reason to have that fear, and just to acknowledge. And one of the things you just said is exactly what I was talking about. We want to know that they're not forgotten, and so somebody else thinking about that helps know that they're not forgotten. And so that really is powerful to be like, and even like something that people did for me, and that I think even God did, pictures. If someone has pictures, if you're, friends or family of the person, and you have old pictures, or like we were talking about, they're stuck on your phone. And so if you go through your phone and find a picture of the person that passed, that they might not have, and send it to them, that was really, really huge for me, to get pictures and to like have more of her details of her life. And then just I don't even remember now where it turned up from, but I literally stumbled across a audio recording. Maybe so, I don't remember. Someone might have sent it to me, but I didn't know it existed, and I didn't even know what it was. I clicked on it, and it was Hannah singing, and I was just like, it was like 4 months out, and it was amazing to hear her voice. And so just any of those things, pictures, recordings, videos, at least for me, was very welcomed. And I think that'd probably be the case for most people.
Yeah. Something, and I don't know why it's coming to my mind right now, but I have another friend who lost a child when she was about 3, and I think that it was similar time frame of when Stephen Curtis Chapman lost his daughter. So I'm thinking that's 15, 18 years ago, something like that. And recently she posted on her Facebook page a picture of her daughter, and she said, I remember her, and I'm always, that's always a part of my life. But I have to also look around me today, to the children that I'm surrounded by today, and live in this moment and the joys that surround me, and move on. I mean, it's not moving on I'm going to forget all of that and move on, but yet embrace what God has for you now, and the story that he's given you. And even when it's complicated or it's difficult, you don't want that to be part of your story. Part of growing our faith is recognizing that it is, and that God has a purpose for each of the things. And so I thought that mom was so brave, and it was such a beautiful testimony of what God did in her life to say, look around me. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for what God has done and where I am today.
Right. Yes. And that's 10 years out, 15 years out, we can get to a place. I can now say, yes, time has healed. And God has healed, more accurately. It's not something we want to hear in the first year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years even. But now it's a true sentiment, and to be able to say that, yeah, this is what God has done, and how he's used it. And like I said, I've met people and I've been able to encourage people because of the loss. We're, as we call in the Peggy Center, we're in the club. We don't want you to be in the club, but we're in the club, and if you join the club, we can be support to you. And so God uses it, and it does get easier, and it does get better. I can't think, for me, the last time that I was sad about Hannah's passing. I can't remember the last time. Things will catch me every so often, and I can't think of any examples right now, but just oh, that was something with connection with Hannah, and it'll just catch me. And just for the moment, and just that awe of the connection or whatever it is. But
right.
But I haven't. Yeah. But the grief part is well past, and God really walked me through it, and now I can share that. And that's what even with the the book. I do want to say one more thing. I don't want to get stuck back there, but because I think it's so important for people to know. As you're asking, what would people know? We kind of fondly refer to those first months, even the first year, as the mud zone. When someone has passed, people can't remember things that are happening even day to day. So having that grace for someone as they're in the mud zone, their brain's just not functioning right, and they don't remember, and they're in a different space. And so, I've had numerous conversations on those early years of that was in the mud zone, I don't know. At the same time, God has, I've got tons of details, but there's other things and then the day-to-day things. So just knowing that about people and about grief, and that it actually, even if for someone that may be new or experiencing grief, I was so thankful when someone told me this probably 6 months into it, that grief physically affects your lungs. I was blown away to know that, but it was completely true. I had multiple times felt like I couldn't breathe, like somebody was squeezing my chest. I couldn't get a deep breath. It wasn't to the point where I felt like I couldn't breathe at all, but I just couldn't get a deep breath. And I felt it many, many times. And finally, someone told me that grief physically affects your body, specifically the lungs. And I was like, oh, that's why I'm experiencing this. And so even letting someone know that, it was just to know what's happening to you it's kind of a scary feeling. And so to even share that with someone, hey, I don't know if you know, but grief actually affects your lungs. And so if you're ever feeling like it's hard to breathe, that's why. Those little things are really helpful. At least it was to me, and I imagine probably could be for others. But anyway, just wanted to throw those last two in there because I think those are helpful to know if you have somebody walking through that, or if someone's experiencing it themselves, to be able to know that is part of the experience.
Yeah, I think that's really good information. You mentioned your book, and what is interesting is I've known you for a few years now, and I didn't know that there was a book. When we decided to have this conversation, you said, oh, there's some information, there's this book out there. And I think it's important just to tell everybody listening, this was not a book that you did to make a stream of income, or you didn't intend for it to sell 500,000 copies. It was your response in obedience to what God had put on your heart, and to honor Hannah's memory and to just walk out your obedience with the Lord.
Yes, I felt very clearly God sent me multiple messages to write the book. And it took several years. And I started off just by making a list of chapter headings, and which they're just vignettes, not chapters. And then it was a couple of years later before I started writing, finishing that list and actually writing them all down. It was actually, God told me to finish it before my 4-year-old was born. And so that's when I actually finished writing it, was while I was pregnant. So then I had it done, and then people helped me type it up after she was born. And really, it was out of obedience. And I feel like the reason I published it was because I was able to then deliver it. There were a lot of people. Loss is really an interesting experience for the community. And I'm one of those people that hear people say something and really hold on to it. And we catch, like, I'm a person that catches just little phrases that people will say. And I remember, I think it was at the funeral home, they said, when it's a child, everyone comes. And it totally was true. We had like 400 people at the service. And it's not like these are people, I don't even know. Anyway, I was shocked at the number of people that showed up. I didn't even get to see them all. Actually, I saw very few of them because I was stuck in the front of the room. And I was disappointed about that. Anyway, a lot of these people, her teachers, the dam staff, Bonneville dam staff, we had many different people that were impacted by her death that didn't know God. And so that's why I feel like I had to write the book. And so when I was writing it, I just kind of put it out there to everybody I knew. I put it out, sent people messages, and let people pre-order it. And then I just basically printed those and a few extras, and that's it. So I got to pass them out on the 11th anniversary because the dam was actually closed for COVID. And so God provided another option, I guess, to go pass out my books on her anniversary. They literally came the day before. He orchestrated that as well. And so people who don't know God have a book about his testimony and about his love and how someone could walk through something like a death of a child and still have faith in God. And so that's why I think I had to why I was supposed to write the book. And I'm content with that. I was actually shocked to see it on Amazon and eBay. I had no idea. I was like, what? And I don't know that anybody else has ever bought the book, but it was there. I don't know if you can, I have no idea. I haven't tried to buy it in a year or two, but that's why I wrote it. It was out of obedience. And I think because of the people that knew her and that would actually read the book that were not Christians. And so it was an opportunity for them to see God and hopefully be saved. Who knows? Can only hope.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your testimony with me today. And yeah, I would encourage people to buy the book. And if you'd also like to have an opportunity to chat with Peggy, you're on my Facebook group sometimes, but we also know each other from a different platform. It's called the Homeschool Hub. And I don't know if we should take just a second. Peggy, I think you're on there more than I am. I'm on there, but there's so many things in social media, I can't juggle them all. But if you are a homeschooler or you're interested in homeschooling information, you want to check out the Homeschool Hub. And I actually know there's several different things online with that name. So I will pop a link in the show notes. And it is a platform that encourages, it shares events that are mostly in the Pacific Northwest, which is why I'm not on it as much anymore because I'm on the other side of the country now. But there's a lot of encouragement, and there are some online, like virtual classes and videos. Is there anything else you want to tell me? I know Joel and Roxy do an amazing job. What do you call it? Administrating that group and leading over there.
Yeah, it's just really been in kind of a changing season. What's been stable is the outdoor school, family camp, which is where we met. That happens every summer. They now have added a fall for marine biology. The people will get to go out on their boat. They actually have a couple boats now. They are amazing and resourceful. And so yeah, it's a good place to get information. It is a good resource to check out. And I could be messaged there. You could go ahead and share my email if people wanted to contact me that way. That would be probably the best way. That I would be more than happy to answer questions or hear from anybody that wanted to reach out.
Yeah, I can do that. And yeah, I will put a plug in for the outdoor schools and family camps, because I know when I went to the one, I was living in Oregon. And so it was just a hop, skip, and a jump over the mountains for me. But there are people that travel from out of state, and it is really
Yes.
cool to be able to go to
Yes.
a educational family camp. The one that we went to was astronomy, and it was a lot of fun getting out all the different equipment and learning about the way that God created the earth and the stars and the planets and all the things he did with such precision. And there's different family camps that they offer through that. So
right, they changed the topic each year. This year was geology, and there is a family that's been coming for years that comes from Montana, and people do travel quite a distance because it's amazing. There was a new family this year. They'd been around Glenn's Gizmos, the hub, for a while, but they hadn't ever been to camp until this year, and I just saw them at church the other day. They're like, "Can we go back?" Because it is just an amazing opportunity of Christian community, to learn about God, to experience a little slice of heaven here on earth. This year particularly was such a juxtaposition even for me. I left camp and came back and I was like, oh, goodbye, blissful Christian safe community. Oh, hello world, I didn't miss you. So it really is an opportunity to just go and relax and be with like-minded people, and they do a fabulous job with the activities and all of the events and things. So I highly recommend camp and any of their other events as well. They do a really fabulous job.
Yeah. Peggy, I would just love it if you would take a second and pray us out to end the episode.
Yes, I would love to do that. So, Father, I thank you for who you are. I thank you that you see us. I thank you that you know what we need. I thank you that you know what each of us is walking through right now, that if there is anybody out there that's listening, you know what they're walking through. And I just ask that you would just touch them, that you would send them some sort of encouragement, Father, in any of the ways that you do. We thank you that you love us and that you comfort us and that you are with us always, Father. And I just ask that you would use this message for your glory, and that you would receive all of the glory and honor. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
I hope that you've been encouraged or challenged in your faith today, and that something we discussed prompts you to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord. If it has, make sure you tell a friend so they can grow along with you. And if you or a friend would like to be a guest and share about God's faithfulness in your life, please email me at podcast@tendingfields.net. Because when we tell of God's faithfulness, we never run out of stories.
Whatever is true.